The two go hunting in the forest. Suddenly, a black figure in the shape of a circle passed. It seems that the father has realized something. So he hurriedly took his son, climb up the guard. After locking the wooden door tightly, he immediately went down to hunt, staring ahead. The sound of shadows scratching at wood from far and near. Cold sweat instantly broke out of his boredom. But I don't realize the heat, up behind his back. Suddenly, a few rumbling sounds rang out, followed by hearing a sound, ran away. The father immediately sighed lightly. It seemed that the monster had left. And not far from the guard, on the ground there is a the wild throne was eaten away. He used his scope to observe. Seeing the bowl again, that terrifying figure. The boy felt a slight, father's rapid breathing. Immediately asked what it was. The father pretended to be calm. Just a bear. However, after the father and son returned home, the boy heard the sound of the bridge again. To save my father through the dam, he said he had discovered traces of human-faced wolves. If you don't destroy it, then the children around will be in danger. Well, in this vast forest, a virus called thermal paint is spread between animals. If a human is accidentally infected, they will turn into monsters. Others are bloody and brutal. The natives call them is a human-faced wolf. In the immediate future, 30 years have passed. The boy who has left his homeland every day, start a business and have a family in No.37 city. Blake has a daughter who is in love and the father and son are very close to each other. I love my daughter. It's magical. How do you know? What are you thinking? And his wife, Charlotte, is a strong and decisive member. The life of the father's family. People who are inherently peaceful. Until Blake receives death notice. His father was missing in the forest for a while. Police searched for days, but to no avail. Finally issued a death notice. As soon as he heard the bad news, Blake felt pain, regret. Because his father was always very strict with him. He left his hometown at the age of 18. Since then, the father and son have not, and meet again. That day, when my wife was off work, Blake boldly spoke his thoughts. I want to take the whole family back to my hometown, to clean up my father's relics, while combining rest and relaxation. Charlotte thinks of busy work. Was busy, so I was going to refuse. But because he wants to improve the relationship, paternity, so she finally agreed. So the whole family of 3, so he drove back to his hometown. However, when approaching the destination, when Blake discovers the path, the official vote was blocked. At first he thought he remembered the wrong way. But, unfortunately, the phone here has no signal. Had to use old paper maps. At this time, the little daughter turned her head, signaling that someone is standing in front of him. Saw the long gun in the other man's hand. Charlotte suddenly felt uneasy. Blake hurriedly introduced their status. At this time, I realized the man first. The main face is the one you blow small. It's just that I haven't seen him for many years, so I didn't realize it right away. Knowing that Blake was going back to his old house, a friend who loves to, thought to guide you. Because of the recent mountain roads, has been changed many times. When I saw the beautiful Charlotte, beautiful sitting in the back, his eyes were full of admiration. Over the years, the population in the forest is getting smaller and smaller. Not to mention young women. Even the living, I don't see much. Blake was still thinking about my friend's words. Then a figure of a person suddenly appear in the front. According to the reflex, he hurriedly hit the steering wheel to avoid, but the car rushed straight down the mountainside. When Blake regained consciousness, then he discovered that the car was stuck on a large tree trunk. The panicked friend tried to escape, but as soon as I opened the car door, who fell straight to the ground. Blake was extremely panicked, hurriedly reminded the cow to come out from the other door, as he was about to leave the car. Then he saw a black shadow again, through the rearview mirror. Fearing that it would climb up, Blake hurriedly reached out and closed the car door. But, at that moment, a giant hand smashed the glass door. Sharp claws scratched at his hand. But the friend is even more pathetic. Before he had time to call for help, were dragged into the deep forest. Blake immediately remembered the legend, in terms of erasing people's faces. So he hurriedly crawled to the other side of the car, saw that the monster had temporarily departed. He immediately called his wife and children down. If you stay here, sooner or later they will die. Fortunately, his father's old house was not far away. The whole family crossed the forest. Soon, he saw the wooden house appeared. At this moment, the sound of hurried footsteps, the back rumbled, signaling that the monster had chased after him. Quickly go inside. After a while, It gradually became quiet outside. Blake began to observe the house, both familiar and unfamiliar. Make sure all doors are locked. He held a flashlight, groping down to the basement. I remember there was a machine in this small power generation. When you turn it on, the light immediately covered the dark house. Fear in everyone's heart, also whined to some extent. Blake reassured his daughter, waiting for the morning play. We're going to leave here. After that, the father and son again play mind-reading games. She finally fell asleep. Blake went out and tried to add the door. At this time, Sal Luo asked her what, wondering in my heart for a long time. What is that thing in the end? Actually, Blake didn't know either. Just guessed that it's a human who has infected with viruses and turned into wild beasts. He pushed the heavy cabinet in front of the door. Sao Luo thinks that this is not safe enough. The best way is still to call the market. But, unfortunately here, the phone has no signal. Blake missed his father's walkie-talkie. Even though it is old, it can still be used. But even though I tried all the frequencies, but he still did not receive any response. Sao Luo found a bunch of locks in the wood and quietly hid it in his pocket. At this moment, Blake smelled a unpleasant odor. Following the smell, he entered the warehouse and happily distributed. Now his father still leaves salted meat. This used to be a favorite dish, like your childhood. But as soon as I took a bite, though, a sharp pain spread throughout his mouth. When chewing more closely, he was shocked to find that he had just pulling out a tooth. I thought it must be because shoulder hit in an accident. Sao Luo hurriedly took out the first aid kit. When treating wounds, she was horrified to realize on her wings, my husband's hands are covered with blood. When the sleeves are rolled up, the marks, sharp scratches are clearly visible. Blake thinks it's just because the car glass piece cut right. But Sao still saw that something was wrong. In her eyes, there was a clear worry. Settling cannot be concealed. Even so, Blake still didn't think there was anything to worry about. He continued to go to the door. But the noise does. The daughter woke up. He kept apologizing to her, but he didn't expect it to stare at him again. His eyes were blank as if hypnotized. Sao Luo also stood silently. The Sai didn't say anything. Strange atmosphere made Blake restless. I don't understand what is happening to the mother and daughter until midnight. He recognized the palm of his hand. I started to go numb, stomach cramps and severe pain. Suddenly, Blake heard on the floor. Could it be that the human-faced wolf sneak in from the home machine? He carefully followed the sound, step by step up the stairs. The noise is getting louder and louder. Blake poked his head around and looked around. Unexpectedly, the thing that emitted the sound, just a crawling spider. By this time, he realized that his hearing. I have become extremely lighthearted. After trying to calm down, then he heard a noise again. This time, it was coming from the outside. Most likely, a human-faced wolf. Blake told Charlotte to stand still, and he crept out to the door to observe. But right then, his legs were hit by a table, strong hands clenched tightly. Charlotte was so frightened that she turned pale, but still rushing. Just hit it hard with a hammer in a row. The monster roared in pain, and withdrew its hand. So much so, Blake escaped, but his condition has much worse. I don't know how long has passed. He gradually regained consciousness from the coma. With sharp hearing, he heard that his wife was using a walkie-talkie for help. As she said again, made him chill down his spine. My husband is infected. He can't control himself. Can't even talk. Blake could hardly believe his hands. He tried to open his mouth to explain, as if the words were choked up again in ancient times. Charlotte hurriedly picked up her husband. Bed rest. But how could he sleep in this state? He jerked his hair and large patches fell out. Even his daughter looked at him with suspicious eyes. Charlotte kindly handed over the pen and paper. Signal me to write what I want to say. Blake wrote down every word with clumsy hands. I'm about to pile up. Charlotte only felt a sourness left in his heart. I need you. If I don't have you, I can't do anything. But what she didn't expect was... Blake didn't understand at all what she said. He has lost his ability, because they continue to be human. At this time, the wound on his hand, Blake was bloody. When removing with leather, they were horrified to find the traces. Wounds have been preliminarily transformed. Feeling the change in the body, Blake immediately licked the wound according to the fell, like a wild beast. His human teeth also caught. The head fell out one by one. Blake realized that he was slowly becoming into a monster. He muttered nonsense. No one understands. Charlotte looked at her husband in pain. No matter what you turn into, she couldn't abandon him either. Through the window frame, she saw the car parked next to, out, and tightly missed, until the afternoon. The lock I found. Charlotte hurried down to the basement. Take a spare battery and a knife. She decided to take Blake to the hospital. Maybe there is still one. A small glimmer of hope. At this time, the human-faced wolf was wandering in. The outside seems to have disappeared. The whole family quickly ran to the pickup truck, pushing Blake and his daughter into the back seat. Charlotte immediately opened the cable cover. The car has been abandoned not too long, so the evil bottle has been exhausted. Fortunately, she had prepared a replacement battery. After the installation is complete, Charlotte hurried to the driver's seat, 10,000 keys to boot. The sound of the engine roaring like a saving sound. Charlotte tried to suppress the excitement, run forward to remove the spare battery. But just as she was about to enter, the number to leave is 1. Sudden ferocious face, close to the glass door. The human-faced wolf quietly chased after them. The gear lever was broken by the monster. The whole family has no choice, other than abandoning the car and running. Blake led the baby granary to climb up big greenhouse roof, but the human-faced wolf is also. Without letting go, it continues to chase. Under the light of the singing, they see a huge shadow, are about to be stamped below. Suddenly, a huge arm swung up. Gah! Glass roof slits. Blake's family panicked in the cold season. Looking through the cracks, they see hideous faces of the monster. The little daughter slipped and slipped, all the way down. Blake realized that if he continued like this, there will be no survivors in the whole family. He told Charlotte to take his daughter, ran back to the wooden house. Therefore, he turned around. Liu Ling jumped off the roof of the greenhouse. Use yourself as bait for the monster. Charlotte took that opportunity to pull her daughter, ran quickly towards the wooden house. In search of trees in the distance, the sound of fighting and holding the ruins rang out. Mother and daughter did not dare to turn their heads, ran into the house, and immediately locked the door. I don't know how long has passed, only know that in the end outside also became quiet. Charlotte looked out the window softly. Under the moonlight, Blake's figure appeared in the salary. She didn't hesitate to open the door to. The loving husband walked in. Charlotte feared that he would lose all reason, but fortunately, he just lay flat on the floor. His breath was heavier. Looking at her father, the little daughter remembered the game that father and son often play, so she put her hand on his head. Even though they can't talk to each other, but they still feel deep friendship. Oh, but right then, Blake suddenly vomited a mouthful of fresh blood. When he looked up, a new sharp tooth was exposed. He couldn't control himself, lunging straight at Charlotte. Oh. But at the very end, he tried to stop, restrain bloodthirst. Blake understood that he had completely transformative. To protect their wives and children, he decided to leave the house. But he just opened the door. Then, the human-faced wolf suddenly turned around. Blake couldn't take his guard, was knocked to the ground by it, because it has not been completely transformed. So he can't compare with the VO, power, and its speed. At the right time of crisis, then Charlotte rushed to the barricade. Taking advantage of the monster's distraction, Blake immediately jumped up. The spark bites hard on it, until the monster, completely immobile. Blake slowly raised his head. He recognized on the wolf's arm, the human face has a familiar tattoo. Unexpectedly, this monster is his father. The shock was so great that Blake couldn't resist. The transformation is taking place. With the last bit of reason, he rushed out of the house, but soon, he fell to the ground. The dew began to be crooked and deformed, at a speed that can be clearly seen. Nails fall out, instead of sharp claws. Blake completely turned into a human-faced wolf. The scene in front of him is also completely changed. And Charlotte is still in the house. Reassure your daughter not to be afraid. Suddenly, all the lights went out. The whole house was stretched up and sunk into darkness. Through the window, she sees Blake in monster shape. At this moment, the pain in her heart. It is impossible to hide anymore. Charlotte knew that she had completed. Have all lost their husbands. From the home machine, a sound of scratching sounded. Blake must have been trying to get inside. Two mothers and daughters in the darkness is destined to hide. But the human-faced wolf came out, right in front of them. Charlotte is antisocial. Then quickly pulled the baby. The girl ran out, hiding in a nearby warehouse. Then she locked the door tightly. But Blake still refuses to give up. Charlotte Hong Lowen just grabbed a beast trap and placed on the ground. I don't know how long has passed. Finally, it was silent outside. She thought Blake had left. She breathed a sigh of relief, unaware of the monster, sneaked inside, and is watching them from the shadows. At that moment, the beast trap on the double floor collapsed. Charlotte realized Blake had, very close, taking advantage of his time when he was trapped. She immediately dragged her daughter to run away. But Blake, after turning into a monster, much scarier than imagined, he didn't hesitate to bite off his feet to escape the trap, then continued to chase them with the other 3 legs. However, his speed has slowed down significantly. Charlotte leads her daughter to run through the forest, finally returned to the place where the accident occurred. She picked up the gun and went to the school of Carl, Blake's old friend. Noticing the human-faced wolf approaching, mother and daughter can only run towards the main road, crossing the guard in the past. Charlotte came up with an idea, immediately pulled her daughter to row up the guard. She knew Blake would definitely chase, follow, and this place is the most favorable position to marry him. Sure enough, in just a moment, Blake turned into a beast and rode up the guard. But at the decisive moment, Charlotte was naked again. And Blake seems to have forgotten too, lost their jobs. The little daughter seems to be, read through your watch, quietly saying that dad wants to end everything. At that moment, Charlotte immediately squeezed the grass. Looking at Blake slowly, took his last breath. Mother and daughter couldn't help but burst into tears, even though he kept muttering something. But they could not understand a single word. That's the whole story of the movie The Sweeper. Looking back at the whole episode, the most impressive character is Charlotte's wife. At first, she cried and said, "Cannot live without a husband." But then, she still repairs the car, set traps, and finally don't stop being afraid to pull the grass. In turn, women's words sometimes, just sweet words. But, in reality, they are the strongest again. Okay, let's come here today. If you have other opinions, please leave a comment below. See you in the next video.
Enjoyed the video? Hit subscribe, drop a like, share with your crew, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk movies.